In today's Leeds news, Leeds can finish higher. Class of 2026 scholars sign on. More goalkeepers linked. Leeds' current transfer state of play. And still no movement on Farke's future. Monday the 20th. Stuff to talk about. It's a bit quiet for our Monday, well, compared to what previous Mondays have been like, but there is some stuff to get into. We did the transfer talk over the weekend to chat about the links in a bit more detail. You can check that out if you want to. There's a few things that box out that are not major stories this morning that we'll get out of the way. There's rumours that Julian Brandt's been offered a 3-year deal by Leeds United. I'm waiting to see if that will be accepted. The players fly out to pre-season camp in the US tomorrow morning. They've got a game against Wrexham this Saturday coming. If it's covered on LUTV or anywhere else, we'll try and do a watch along for that over on bigup.com. And the links to John Stones over the weekend as well. It now appears that Arsenal are making a move to try and sign John Stones on a free transfer. There is a bit of stuff to talk about, not massive detail, but we'll start off today with an opinion piece from Alan Smith about where Leeds can finish heading into this season. The former Arsenal striker Alan Smith, now Sky Sports pundit and commentator, has been given a pretty confident assessment of Leeds United's prospects heading into the new campaign and believes that Leeds United can finish better than they did last year. And he also managed to drop Shay Charles in as a player that could have serious impact for Leeds should they decide to finally get that deal done. He wasn't involved in Southampton's game over the weekend, I believe. I could be wrong on that, but I believe he wasn't involved in it. Anyway, Smith was speaking with a betting site over the weekend and he was speaking about Leeds United's chances and their signings for the upcoming season. And he said this: Harry Wilson will be a good signing. There's no doubt about that. They're trying to build on things, aren't they? Could they kick on with some good signings? Maybe, yeah. Shay Charles could be good too. They're in a good spot, I think. And Daniel Farke would hope that they can finish a few places higher than they did last season. I think an awful lot of where Leeds will finish in the upcoming season will fall on what players they can bring in and if they can elevate the floor of the squad. And as we've talked over the last couple of days, there's an absolute ton of players being linked. And when we get to the goalkeeper stuff, an explosion of goalkeeper links over the last 3 days, which is absolutely nuts. But it does appear that Leeds have got shortlists and they're moving on certain targets. And if they can get them, talk about this more when we get Daniel Farke's future. Be a very decent season for Leeds United. No reason why an upper mid-tables finish wouldn't be off the cards. Let's move on. Leeds United have officially announced their 2026 scholars intake with 12 young players signing 2-year deals. And it looks like an absolutely bumper class with some genuinely exciting names that have been mentioned and 2 or 3 that are worth particular attention. Leeds have been trying to invest seriously in the academy side. We spoke to Andy Wood a few weeks ago on the podcast and Andy said the Leeds are actively trying to hoover up the best talent and dominate their local area. And some of the players that have come in definitely tick that box. The names that have been signed up: Liam Balmer, George Banks, Oliver Bennett, Marley Hazel Schofield, Owen Haywood, Oliver Toby Johnson, Alex Massey, Kai Morrell, Marlon Mensah, Thomas Stockton, Alfie Walker and Joshua Wolfrey. All 12 players have signed 2-year scholar deals at the club and they'll also be taking part in a BTEC diploma alongside their footballing development at Thorpe. It's important to get both sides of your life sorted out just in case. But a couple that are worth talking about and have made significant moves to Leeds in the last couple of weeks and a couple of them a few months back. And the first one's Alfie Walker. He's a 16-year-old right back. He's joined Leeds from Manchester United's academy where he spent 9 years. He's an under 17 Welsh international. He's also represented Wales at under 15s, under 16s and under 17s level. He is primarily a right back, but he can operate in midfield as well. He's a really interesting one to keep an eye on, one that Leeds were trying to get for a couple of months towards the back end of last season. The next one to talk about is Liam Balmer. He's another England youth international, left or right back, joins from Liverpool, and he made his first England under 17 appearance in a 2-1 win over Venezuela in September in 2025. And Leeds have already got a couple of players in that England under 17 setup, or what should be the England under 18 setup going into this year. So he's an interesting one to talk about. Well, Liam Balmer knows Thorpe Arch pretty well. He actually made his debut for Leeds under 18s back in March, so he's familiar with the surroundings. And Liverpool's academy described Liam Balmer a while ago as technically gifted, tenacious, athletically excellent and good on the ball. So an interesting player to come in. And Kai Morrell is the last one to talk about. We did talk about Kai Morrell joining Leeds a few months back, and he's moved again from Liverpool as well. And Kai is an Irish under-16 international. Genuinely impressive footballer. He's been very good for the Irish youth side since he's been brought into the fold there. Fingers crossed he goes on to be a full-scale Irish international down the line. It's a really interesting looking group of players. It does look like a very bumper class for 2026 of some very interesting talent. And again, if Leeds are trying to do what Andy Wood said and hoover up the best talent, going off and getting some of these players, which again, they brought in some other players for the under-21s and under-18s towards the back end of last season. Now the next thing to see is, will they get opportunities? Will they stretch them with some stretch targets playing 17s and under-21s? And then will they be able to make the breakthrough in a few years' time into the Leeds United senior side? And that's the big question that we all ask every single time we see these players sign for our club. Let's move on and talk about a weekend of goalkeeper madness. So for a Monday morning, the absolute amount of goalkeepers that have been linked with Leeds United is difficult to try and wrap your head around. The volume very clearly underlines Leeds' desire to bring in a goalkeeper. But on the other side of this, it does appear that every single available name of a goalkeeper is being thrown at Leeds United. Some of them are interesting. Some are coming from relatively credible enough sources. Some coming from less credible sources. Some lingering around from a couple of weeks back. But two that popped up over the weekend are very interesting. And they're pictured here on my left-hand side or right-hand side as you're watching this. But there's been a host of goalkeepers linked since Thursday last week. 7 in total. And they vary in scenarios from Leeds United being interested in a player to watching him to actually making a genuine move for the goalkeeper. And as we know from speaking over the weekend, at least from the Leeds local media, Leeds' primary target on goal this summer is James Trafford. He's, by all accounts, Leeds' primary target, full stop, across all signings this summer. But a couple that were linked that are interesting and worth having a look at. The first one is Kiel Scherpen, and Sky Sports journalist Ben Heckner posted an exclusive last night confirming that both Leeds United and Ipswich Town are showing interest in Royal Union St Kilda goalkeeper Kiel Scherpen. However, Sasha Tavaleri has also been on top of this story, and he added that Ipswich are believed to have already submitted an €8 million bid, and Union are said to be open to a sale. €8 million, about £5.76 million, rough calculations, I believe. But Tavaleri also believes that Ipswich are in direct talks with USG and negotiations with Scherpen right now. Leeds United have been mentioned as a club of interest, but nothing more than that in this piece. If you look at the Ipswich media on this side, and again you look at the USG's direct media, it does appear that all of the noise is around Ipswich Town, and Leeds United are subtext or a bottom line as also said to be interested in the player. So nothing more than that, I would imagine, at this moment in time. The second one that's worth talking about is a return of a link from last summer, and that's Scherpen and Milinkovic-Savic. Now, last season, he decided not to come to the Premier League. He wanted to stay in Serie A. He wanted to compete for Champions League football and play in Europe. And he got his move to Napoli, who won Serie A last season and will be playing in the Champions League this year, should he stay. However, Corriere dello Sport believed that Leeds United are monitoring the situation of Milinkovic-Savic, and he could be available to leave. I believe Napoli are bringing in a new manager. One of the stories I saw was they're looking for a brand new number one for next season, which is interesting considering Milinkovic-Savic had a pretty good season for them last season. There was no issues with him. His numbers all look very, very positive. But Football Italia have also weighed in on this, and they believe that Napoli have already offered Milinkovic-Savic to Tottenham Hotspur, and they want an exchange for Vicario, who they would like as their first choice goalkeeper heading into this season. Now, Milinkovic-Savic, as we know from last season, is a big lad. He's 6'8" in height. The transfer fee around him is about €15 million, £12.5-ish million. So not a huge chunk of change if Leeds did decide to bring him in. But since Thursday, these are the goalkeepers that have been linked with Leeds. Zion Suzuki, Jacob Zetterstrom, Carl Rushworth, James Trafford, Guillaume Restes, Vanya Milinkovic-Savic, and Kiel Scherpen. 7 goalkeepers since Thursday have all had Leeds' name attached to them. Now, as we know, and it's very clear from the local media, Leeds' primary target is James Trafford. That is the goalkeeper Leeds want to bring in for the upcoming season. Unless Leeds have been told, you're not getting him, you can't afford him, or the player himself has said, I don't fancy it, lads, I want to go somewhere else. In which case, then maybe Leeds are looking at one of these goalkeepers on a short list of potential options. And it's a hell of a short list. there are some good goalkeepers in there. Scherpen's an interesting one. He's 6'8", I believe, as well. Another big lad. So two massive goalkeepers. That's the big bastard FC for Leeds United. But it is it is interesting. Scherpen being linked by Sky Germany, relatively credible one as well. But again, it does appear that Ipswich are the more favourable option for that one, or the ones making the active moves for him. And Milinkovic-Savic possibly being connected back to Leeds United just because he was linked last year. Hull City are also mentioned as a possible option for him, but Spurs seem to be another likely destination as they continue to spend money this summer, and swapping one goalkeeper for another one might save them a few quid as well. So yeah, an interesting one to keep an eye on, but yeah, it does seem unlikely that Leeds United are actively after every single one of these goalkeepers. Okay, next one to talk about is Leeds United's current state of play. Graham Smith has an update in the Yorkshire Evening Post just to outline all of the players that have been linked with Leeds United over the last week or so and where we actually sit with those players right now. It's a fairly comprehensive transfer state of play that Graham has put out. Some interesting detail, some clarification on stories that have been linked, and it might reframe the picture around what Leeds United are actually doing, at least right now. And the unfortunate caveat to have to put on this is when it's said not an active pursuit for Leeds right now, we have to add a caveat to that, because Saturday last week, week before last, it was said that Mihajlovic wasn't someone Leeds were actively pursuing, and they were. So we do have to put that caveat in there. The first one on Graham Smith's list is James Trafford. And what Graham has confirmed is Leeds are in active conversations with Manchester City around James Trafford. It is really clear from this one that this is an active transfer target. So again, all the other goalkeepers being mentioned with Leeds, this is the one that Leeds appear to be making the biggest effort to try and get done. And we'll keep an eye on this one. And it is the one, at least for right now, that is worth keeping your eye on. The next one to talk about, we just mentioned them briefly in the goalkeeper update, is Keel Scherpen. Now, the Yorkshire Evening Post, on top of what else has been said, already say that he is currently not an active pursuit for Leeds United right now. The USG shot stopper is a player that Leeds are well aware of, so possibly on a short list, or they admire but are not actively pursuing right now. And that's where that one sits. So again, going back to the other piece about this, kind of just adds up with everything else that has already been said. On Shea Charles, Graham Smith says that it remains a case that Leeds are hopeful of getting this one over the line. There's no update beyond that. It does still appear to be very cloak and dagger around the Shea Charles situation. Southampton appear to be trying to drag this out for as long as they can to get as much money as they can, or to try and get somebody else to get involved in a bidding war, where Leeds are still trying to push it through. Still no update on whether the last transfer was accepted or not. Definitely hasn't been rejected, at least. And a lot of rumour around this is related to the structure of the deal rather than necessarily a transfer fee. That if Leeds are bidding 23 plus 2, Southampton want as much of that up front as they can possibly get, where Leeds might want to spread it out over a longer period of time to amortise it. That's the situation there, but no major update on that at all. So very quiet around that one. Julian Brandt's the next one to talk about. And again, Graham Smith has confirmed the information from the back end of last week that his father, Jurgen, has met with Leeds United for talks. Leeds United remain very keen in trying to complete the deal for Julian Brandt. However, Smith does point out that Leeds are not the only side trying to sign Julian Brandt right now. There are plenty of other clubs actively interested in bringing the number 10 in. So no update on what was said towards the back end of last week. And then Pavel Schulz, which was a player that was linked over the weekend with Leeds, an exciting one as well. I thought there's a world where you could see Julian Brandt, and Pavel Schulz both coming to Leeds United. What Graham Smith has said is this one is similar to the Scherpen situation. Leeds are not actively pursuing Schulz right now, but that could change if other transfer business doesn't materialise. Schulz is seen as a contingency option for Leeds United and not an active pursuit right now. Everton are also believed to be keeping an eye on him as well. Now, again, you have to put the caveat, because what happened with Mihajlovic, the information that came out from Leeds at that point was not an active pursuit, admire, nothing more. And Leeds were actively involved in trying to get the player at that moment in time. So, again, you have to just apply that to the likes of Schulz, maybe even Scherpen as well, and see where we go from there. But that's the latest update. Let's move on, talk with Daniel Farke's future. Johnson has addressed what he calls the elephant in the room Daniel Farke being into the final 12 months of his contract. No talks, no signature, no sign of a deal, at least right now. Johnson does point out, though, the noises from the club are very, very positive. Parag Marathe has talked about Daniel Farke. He said that he is a big part of the club's future plans, and conversations will happen when the timing is right. Daniel Farke has also said towards the back end of last season that he wants to be in charge of a club that is competing for something rather than a club that is competing to avoid something, and he is ambitious and wants the club to match his ambition. Something that Parag Marathe said Daniel Farke doesn't need to sell to him. They're already aligned on that one. Now, what's interesting here is Farke himself might be waiting to see what Leeds hierarchy get done in this summer's transfer window, if he gets the targets that he wants, and if they show physically that their ambition is matching Daniel Farke's by getting the players in that he wants. And Isaac Johnson has also made a very compelling argument for why this isn't that big of a deal, really. And he's basically pointed out the obvious thing, which is players going into the last 12 months of their contract is a problem for clubs. Depreciating value, can sign a pre-contract agreement with a club in January and you'll likely lose them for little to nothing when they get to this stage. But a manager, there's nothing unusual with this situation at all. Marcelo Bielsa at Leeds always signed one-year contracts. Antonio Iraola signed one-year contracts, 2 years with Liverpool this year. Plenty of managers go into the final year of their contract. And they could be at a situation right now where both parties are just monitoring the situation and having a look at it. Daniel Farke to see, can I get the targets that I want? And he is believed, according to reports, to want certain specific targets this summer. Harry Wilson and Mahardimovic are both two of those targets. Shea Charles is also believed to be one that he really, really wants. And Julian Brandt is the other one. So if they can get those targets in, maybe that matches his ambition and he signs a new deal, or they have conversations around it. Maybe the 49ers are looking at the situation as well and seeing where they are. Do they want to move forward with this? What's the plan for the season? What's Daniel Farke going to lay out in front of them? But it does appear there's no major issues behind the scene. Haven't seen him pictured in pre-season just yet. That could just be me not seeing it. But yeah, I don't think 1 year left on a contract for a manager is that big of a deal. I think when the timing is right and when they're all aligned on things and they sit down and have a chat about it, they'll get it done. But time to run on that. And I would say, and if I was in Daniel Farke's shoes, show me your ambition. Show me how ambitious you are by the target you bring in this summer. Give me what I want, and then we'll talk about potentially signing a new deal. But again, as Isaac Johnson points out, all the noise is positive behind the scenes. Let's see where it goes. Folks, that'll be it for me today. Massive thanks as always for supporting the channel. You can check out Transfer Talk over the course of the weekend. And I will be back tomorrow for more Leeds United news. Have a great rest of your day. Talk to you soon. See you.